Hi, everybody. Michelle Oushakoff with Juniper Networks. I'm actually the account manager here, and Rick Pasco is our systems engineer, so you might see the two of us running around town quite a bit. Juniper Networks has been in business about 20 years, and really what we were asked to do today was to be a part of the transformation and innovation track. And one of the things that I had discussed with the advisory board was the fact that Juniper as an organization has gone through some significant changes as far as data center. So this isn't going to be all IT focused, but just out of curiosity, business side people, program business side, and IT people? Okay, okay, cool. So we'll have for both, just so rest assured it won't be highly focused in one way versus the other. But Juniper went through a transformation in terms of reducing the amount of data centers that we had from 18 data centers to one, and it was quite the transformation, which is what the story that we're going to talk you through today. And we moved to the cloud, and we still have a remaining data center, and so we're just going to talk about our journey through that process and things to consider: security, people impact, process impact, all of the above, many, many other things. But I have today Neil Overmon, who is the director of our IT architecture, and also Serge O is what I'm going to leave it at. Even though my last name is Oushakoff, his is Ovchinnikov. I think I got it right. But his is harder than mine. So anyway, they're here from our corporate office. So I want to thank everybody for coming, and I'm going to hand it over to Neil.
Hi, good morning, everybody. So once again, the people who are business people, just raise your hands. Great, so everybody else in the room can be bored for about 5 slides, and when Serge takes over, you guys can leave. That's how it always works. We have both the high-level view about how we got from 18 data centers to really down to 1 and with our cloud journey. And then Serge is going to pick it up and talk about a lot of the problems we faced along the way and how we got along that journey. And I think one of the really interesting places where we started, just to give you some context, I've been with Juniper since 2006, and I helped set up our initial Amazon account. It actually ran on my American Express card until I took a little break from Juniper for a couple of years. And let me tell you, it's a great way to get American Express points, is to set up the cloud on your private card, and I'm sure this is being recorded, and somewhere my boss is going to be really mad about that. So when I came back, there was a full team ready to go, and we were moving a large portion of our infrastructure to the cloud. And when we started, I think one of our big challenges was convincing people that we should move to the cloud. And so we'd go around and give presentations. Hey, look, you know, this is a great new opportunity. There's all this great technology. Let's go move some of our workload up into Amazon or to one of the partners. And they were like, oh, you know, we don't want to do that. We already have a data center. We know how to operate it. We're happy doing what we're doing right now. And so we said, okay, I think we know what's wrong. We're telling the wrong story. What we need to do is ask people, why not cloud? Why do you need to keep it in your data center? What is important about this workload or this server that it really needs to stay on premise? We can put it in Amazon, for example, for less money. We can make it easier to maintain, and as Serge will talk to you about, we can make it more secure. So really, we changed our question, and it changed our view. And it made it much easier to convince our business teams, wherever you are, that it was a really good idea to take the risk on cloud. As we gain momentum, and again, Serge will talk to this, it became an easier story no matter what we did. People were coming to us asking, can we move our workload to the cloud? It's easier for us to manage. And at Juniper, one of our key metrics, time to value, it's much easier to get time to value out of the cloud. So one thing to take away is when you're going and talking with folks, don't think about the reasons you can't do it. Think about the reasons why you can do it. Make it a positive conversation. So, you know, what are the elements of cloud that make it so valuable for us? And I think this really captures it. For first, it's cost. We spend, like all major organizations do, on capital equipment. We have a depreciation schedule. So for us, you know, when you buy a server, we have a 5-year depreciation. 5 years, we're going to be paying for that piece of hardware, whether we use it or not. And our utilization levels weren't great. It's not like these servers are working 24 hours a day. They're often idle, especially on weekends, and so we're not getting really good value out of the money we're spending on that hardware. Whereas in the cloud, we can, and certainly in the case of infrastructure as a service, we can get a really great value. We can pay by the hour for the workload. We can optimize our costs. Again, Serge will speak to that. And it really gives us an opportunity to manage that dial in a much more granular fashion. And I mentioned security. I think one of the main concerns that people had, especially when we started moving into the cloud, was, gosh, how are we going to do compliance? If I move a Sarbanes-Oxley compliant app up here, it's one of our financials or has to do with our supply chain planning, how am I going to stand in front of the auditors and explain to them that it's now running in Amazon? I don't even know what the server looks like. And we worked really hard with both our auditing team to get them familiar with what the cloud was like, as well as with our business partners and our chief information security officer to transfer some of these compliance-oriented workloads into the cloud. And what I think is interesting is the very first app that actually went up on the cloud for us was a security app. So it really made it an easier story as we moved on down with more of our business partners to move things into the cloud. And I mentioned some of the benefits. I'm going to speak in a moment to the different kinds of cloud services you can take advantage of. I've certainly, in a long way, moved from the infrastructure as a service, where you're moving servers into the cloud, to the software as a service model, where you're taking advantage of, for example, Salesforce. And I think one of the things that's really helped us is that this gives us a tremendous benefit in terms of the amount of value we get out of each one of those services. What do I mean by that? Well, we don't have to implement Siebel CRM anymore. We're not running big servers. We're not paying Siebel licensing, and we can get it essentially directly off the web as a service from Salesforce in this particular case. If you have HR or HCM systems, you can get that from Workday. So there's all these different providers that allow us to take advantage of the work they're already putting into it. And as a company, for example, Salesforce, their day job is making the best possible CRM tool or the best possible relationship management tool. We don't have to worry about it anymore, right? And in terms of platform, we're able to take advantage, in the case of Amazon, there are already database services at Amazon. So instead of installing Oracle or instead of working to get our own DBAs to do something, we can go to Amazon, we can click, and again, it does cost, but it allows us to really quickly implement a database or a service using the pieces that Amazon's already spent tremendous time working on and has built an entire business model and a global service model out of. So I know if I get a database, for example, at their California area, I can go to the East Coast and get it. So that's platform. So we have software and platform. And finally, infrastructure, which I speak to a lot because I work a lot with the infrastructure teams. Like, hey, get this server out of my server room. Let's put it up in Amazon. It'll be much easier for us to manage. And that's sort of like the most basic service you can get from our Amazon partner. And I really like the way that we framed it again when we were out talking to the business. Look, if you just want the thing to work, if you just want to consume it, get software as a service. Find a vendor that meets your requirements. If it's marketing, if it's sales, if it's manufacturing, whatever that thing is, go find a vendor in the marketplace, get them by the seat or by the hour, and pay for that service. We'll take that problem away from you. It's fantastic. So if possible, software as a service. If you can't just consume it, then let's find some moving parts that we know are bulletproof. Let's build on it. We'll take advantage, if we're writing custom software, of the services in Amazon, so we don't necessarily have to write our own database drivers. We don't have to write our own services. And then finally, worst comes to worst, you can do infrastructure as a service, so we can make virtual servers out there in the world. And this is the model that stood in good stead for us. And in fact, we found that by putting security first and by putting consumed software as a service first, we've been able to dramatically reduce costs and make our business users so much happier. So if the IT people in the room are tired of the business people yelling at them, that's a great plan. Business people, you might want to stop yelling at your IT people, they're trying. And so we can deliver this much quicker, and we can deliver it with exactly what the team wants. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Serge, who's going to talk a lot about how we overcame the concerns and how we got our journey going.
Jump the gun. Thank you. So, there we go. So before we talk about the journey a little bit, let's touch on some of the concerns. So Neil mentioned security already, and if you look about 10 years ago or so, probably even as recent as 5, a lot of companies were using security as a reason to not move to the cloud. It was seen as a very scary and strange and unknown place. So what's happened kind of over the past 5 or 10 years is, as cloud services and providers have matured, people are actually moving to the cloud in order to obtain security. Now, security is not necessarily just a thing or a checkbox that you check off. Practically speaking, it's a set of controls or layers of an onion, if you will. So let's kind of do a quick walkthrough and talk about a couple of them. So first of all, you have contractual protection. At the end of the day, cloud providers are really no different than any other partner you work with today. If you feel that there's something that needs to be part of a contract, you still have that ability to incorporate that. By its nature, clouds are multi-tenant. There's many different folks from different verticals, different use cases. So what that results in is, if you look at any major cloud provider, they participate typically in a couple of dozen different assurance and certification programs to ensure that the controls are there for whatever vertical or use case they're working with. So by embracing these and using these solutions, you kind of get that for free because even though your use case may not be handling, let's say, financial or healthcare information, the service itself is built in a way that meets these compliance requirements. So wherever you have compliance, you have audit teams, and one of their first questions is always, show me the evidence, right? So from a cloud perspective, in order to facilitate that there's very extensive logging capabilities that are typically part of the platform itself, both for their internal usage, as well as capabilities that are exposed to you as a customer from the perspective of logging. So you can get pretty good understanding of exactly who's doing what sort of things are they doing. And that's not something that's traditionally easily available to you on-premise. You may have it within, let's say, a specific vertical on a server, but you won't necessarily have it across your storage, your compute, and your network. So from a security perspective, the traditional model is the CIA, confidentiality, integrity, availability. So availability often gets kind of forgotten, but at the end of the day, if your service is not available, it doesn't matter that it's secure because no one can use it. So cloud providers, in a lot of cases, either give you the tools to make something highly available, where it's, let's say availability of different data center environments within a region, across regions, right? They give you ability to automate things so that you can automatically recover. So there's a lot of tooling that's available to make things highly available. And at the same time, if you're consuming, let's say, software as a service, in that case, you'll get actual explicit guarantee that something will be up X percentage of the time. And the availability aspect is quite important to a lot of these. I mean, if you think, when was the last time you saw Google.com or Amazon.com actually be down? This is the infrastructure that these folks are using to build their own services. So encryption. This is something that's not new to the cloud, but what is different is that the cloud makes access to encryption much more readily available. So every single major cloud provider today has a key management service that allows you to create encryption constructs. Not only that, they also integrated with their other services so that things that weren't necessarily encryptable or easily so before can be now. So that gives you an additional layer of protection that you can get access to that you couldn't necessarily as easily have done previously. So automation. I feel like this is something that's mentioned in every single cloud presentation. So, just to talk a little about what it's doing on the security slide. So, if you think about how you do security controls today, there's a set of guidelines and processes that are written in a book somewhere that someone must understand, someone has to be trained in how to apply, and they have to know how to use them. One of the things that changes in the cloud is you get the ability, instead of having passive rules that need to be interpreted and understood, the ability to have active rules. Because everything is logged and audited, you can see when something is going wrong, and you can actually codify the implementation of your security systems. So I'll give you an example. We have a set of requirements that very explicitly defines how we deploy things that are publicly facing. If something comes up that doesn't meet those requirements, that environment is actually terminated immediately. So you have the ability to enforce those rules without having to necessarily, worry about training folks about, this is the set of guidelines that you should be following. Not to say that training is not important, still do that. So the one thing, though, is you've moved your stuff to the cloud. That doesn't necessarily just automatically make it secure. You, at the end of the day, are still responsible for ensuring that your application and your data is secure. So what the cloud does give you, though, is you get a much more expanded tool set to make that happen.